All right, everybody. Thanks for watching the Urban Soldiers Dynamic YouTube channel. We're basically going to talk about a female's perspective of taking classes, dynamic classes. You know, oftentimes I get a lot of people ask at the shop, you know, they ask me, well, when you take classes, you know, what kind of classes are you taking? Do you like them? You know, what do you expect? What should I bring? What kind of gear are you going to bring? But they very rarely ask my wife, who's, you know, the owner of the shop as well, and she takes classes too. It's a male-dominated industry, and oftentimes they'll come straight to me and just ask me about, well, training and, you know, who should I take, what should I do, what should I bring, what classes should I take. So I figured what better way to talk about a female's perspective, because let's face it, guys and girls, I'm not the prettiest girl on the block. So, I figured that it'd be really good to talk, you know, have Jessica talk about as a female perspective, you know, on these classes. You know, what does she expect, and you know, what does she get out of it, and all of that. So now, you know, we took Randy Kane's class at Cumberland Tech.
Who is phenomenal.
Yeah, he's a great guy. If anybody ever gets a chance, you know, that wants to take classes, whether it be through us, but if you definitely want to take a great one-on-one class, Randy Kane's Tactical Pistol 101 is awesome. You don't have to be, you know, a guy that knows some Kung Fu Ninja shit, but you can just do regular stuff. You can be an absolute newbie. In the class that we took, we did have quite a few actually ladies, and quite a few of those ladies were new. So, you know, one of the questions that I have is, you know, what I want you to talk about is, as a female, did you want to take dynamic training classes? I was taking them at the time. I still continue to take them. But did you want to take training classes?
Well, let's just say this. You know, everybody begins as a newbie at some point in time, right? So whether you start off with an interest and start watching YouTube videos, or you decide to get your feet wet and take a basic pistol class, everybody starts off on the same playing field. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So like when you were talking about gear, I had absolutely no idea what was involved, and I didn't understand why I couldn't just wear my jeans out there in the middle of the field. And I quickly realized how thankful I was that someone told me the appropriate equipment that I was going to need.
And we'll get into the equipment and what gear works, because again, not only for guys is every body type different, and for all guys, one piece of gear or equipment isn't necessarily going to work for, you know, myself and then work for somebody else. But then there's a different dynamic between a male and a female. You know, in the industry, there are guys that have the, what we call quote unquote uniform, the holsters from the specific manufacturers, the belts from specific manufacturers, you know, everything down to the shoes as well as gloves for long guns.
Which you really don't understand until you do your first class, and you actually see the differences in what people bring. What I thought was very neat about the classes that in the gun community, they ask each other questions about, hey, you know, why do you have this piece of equipment? Or, hey, you know, what do you think about this? Or, hey, how's that working for you? So that I really appreciated, because you were able to glean off of people, their experiences and what they were using and why they used it, which is super helpful. Being a female with this class, I wasn't sure what to expect, because I can tell you, you know, we work at the shop, and you get a lot of testosterone, a lot of bravado. So I wasn't sure what to expect at this class. And, you know, Randy Kane is so, he doesn't have an ego. So when you go up, he's very approachable, which I appreciated as a woman, because I just wasn't sure what it was going to be like, because I just didn't know. Very approachable, no question was too dumb. And that I appreciated.
All right, excellent. Now, one of the important things I want to get across is, you know, especially for females who are thinking about doing dynamic classes, and we absolutely encourage not only females, males, but as well as youth. Anybody getting into any kind of training and qualified training, meaning that the foundations are pretty much the same and are a solid rock. But tell everyone, with you, how long have you been shooting? What was your initial experience with shooting? And then give a quick snapshot to where you went from there. Because I think a lot of women out there are either just getting into it because either their boyfriends or husbands are doing it, or you get the same story from customers that we get all the time is, well, I've got guns in the house, I want my wife to know how to use it. Well, there's a difference between being able to pick it up, point it at the direction, pull the trigger, and hope that it either works, but don't know anything about malfunctions, don't know how to operate the gun. So I want to make sure that the women out there that are thinking about doing these or on the fence, that they understand where you came from in what amount of time, so that they can understand that, well, I can do this too. So let's talk about that. So tell us kind of the first experience of you getting into shooting, period, and then how long it has taken for you to get to this point of actually taking a class.
Okay, so I started shooting about, I would say, 4.5 years ago. So I remember being pregnant with our third child, and that's when I kind of was okay with just looking at guns, not shooting them, but just being able to go into a shop and look at them. I remember my husband so kindly decided that we really needed a gun, and I really needed a gun that I could shoot. So, you know, he goes into the local gun shop, and what did they tell him? Oh, well, your wife needs, you know, a snub nose 38 revolver. You know, it's a really good gun. Make sure it's lightweight. And so my husband, the happy husband, you know, he comes home and he's like, hey, I got this gun for you. I want you to go shoot it. Well, he takes me to the range. We got the kids in the car, and he hands me...
Mind you, I'm in the car as well, so we didn't just leave the kids in the car.
Yes, so he sends me into the range with my brand new Smith&Wesson lightweight revolver, and so I go in there, I got my revolver, I have my box of ammo, I get my eyes and ears on. Meanwhile, you know, FYI, I never shot before. So I get in there, I really don't know how to hold it. I really don't know what to expect as far as recoil, and so I load all my 5 rounds, I close the cylinder, I point it down range because that's where it's supposed to go, I pull the trigger, and I wasn't anticipating the recoil, and it almost pointed up at the ceiling, and I put it down, and I thought, wow, I'm never shooting again. It was a horrible experience.
This all over pretty much 3 minutes from the time she goes in to the time she came out. At first, as a husband, I was happy. I was like, wow, look at that. My wife, she knows how to shoot. She did this in 3 minutes. She's got to be the best. And then she opens the door to the car and basically says this.
I hated it. I hate this gun, and sell it. And so it took me a good couple months before I got back in the range, just from that bad experience, because then I thought, well, if the 38 did that, all of them must do that. And again, you know, as a newbie, not knowing anything, you know, I didn't know about the different calibers. I didn't know about all the things that were out there. My husband was just trying to be a good husband and went into the shop and talked to some of the sales associates, and that was the suggestion that they came up with. So my journey started after that. So a couple months later, I started with the smallest caliber, which was a .22 long rifle pistol, and I went to the semi-automatic pistol. My very first firearm was a Walther P22, and at that time, that was the only firearm that I could rack the slide. So in the event that I had a malfunction, learning how to clean it, that was the only firearm that fit my hand and that I was able to manipulate. So, and I love that gun. And so I started off with a .22, and then I started working my way up. So then the next thing I got was a Walther PK380, which was great. So I was working my way up, but there were some features I didn't like about that gun that I missed from the P22, like having a slide lock.
Yeah.
That was important to me. So after that, then I graduated again, and then I started shooting 9mm. And I really, really wanted to shoot a Glock because I just thought they were so efficient, And I realized very quickly that the Glock, since it's double stack, is just way too fat for my hands. And my hands, I would actually have to adjust my grip in order for my finger to even reach the trigger. So then I was compromising my grip, and I wasn't being very accurate because I was having to compromise everything because it just didn't fit my hand. So we ended up trying several slim frame firearms, and I really liked the Walther PPS, and which we got in 9mm, which was a fabulous slim frame single stack 9mm. And so I had been shooting for a while. I felt confident, you know, I was always shooting center of mass. And then, you know, Marco started taking these classes, and then I started thinking to myself, you know, if something happened and I had to use my firearm, I don't know how to get it out of the holster. I've never, when you go and shoot at a range, it's very static. So I get to stand in the lane, I get to stand the way I like, I get to hold my gun the way that I like, and my target doesn't move. And I decided very quickly that, okay, if anything ever happened, do I know how to move and shoot? In the event that, you know, I'm right-handed, in the event that, what if something happened to my right hand? Do I know how to shoot left-handed? At the time, I didn't. Do I know how to get it out of my holster using my non-dominant hand? Yeah, no, I didn't know how to do that either. So I decided really quickly that, you know what, maybe the next step is, you know, doing a moving and a shooting class as opposed to just standing in the range and shooting at the range.
So, and then basically fast forward, you now use what gun?
So we tried a bunch of stuff. With the single stack, single stacks are great, but you have pros and cons, right? So there's not as much capacity. So capacity was important to me. I wanted to be able to carry as many rounds as I could. And I was able to manipulate the Smith&Wesson M&P 9mm, and it's a full size.
Yep.
What I really like about the M&P series is that it has 3 different adjustable back straps. So I was able to put on the smallest back strap, and it fit my hand. So I was super excited. I don't get to carry a Glock, but that Smith&Wesson M&P.
And that's okay for you Glock fans. I carry a Glock 19. Absolutely love the gun. The only thing, the gripe that I have against the M&P is the trigger itself.
Yes.
We ended up getting 2 M&Ps. We had what I would consider a first generation and a second generation, because if everybody who has, or at least tried the M&P, the issue that Smith&Wesson had was they just had a mushy trigger. And those are things that in subsequent videos we're going to talk about the different aspects of the firearms, why one's better than the other. We're going to talk about trigger manipulation, reset, all of that. So, you know, watch future videos for that. But when we ended up about a year and a half later, we ended up getting a backup gun, because this is something we had talked about doing multiple classes. And when you're doing classes, it's easy that if your gun goes down, rather than spend the time to fix it, because you don't want to, you pay a lot of money to take a class, and you don't want to sit there and spend it trying to fix it, or if you can't fix it, and then you're pretty much done. Yeah. So we decided to get a backup weapon. Well, that backup weapon, I guess, is a second generation M&P 9, and their trigger has gotten better. It's not quite a Glock, but it's a little bit better. So,
especially with the reset. And again, you know, that's something that just this past year, just learning how to shoot, the fact that there is such a thing as a reset. You know, I'd always heard about it, but I hadn't actively trained myself in that way to be mindfully aware of my trigger and making sure that I don't let it all the way out, and resetting.
All right, so now here we are. We're taking Randy Kane's class as a couple. And, you know, a couple questions I want to start off with is, you know, what expectations before taking the class did you have? You know, like what were you thinking might happen, or what were you afraid of, or what were you, you know, nervous about, things like that. So before taking the class, you're rolling up the day before, even the car ride there, what's in your mind?
Okay, so obviously a little nervous because it's something new. I was concerned because I was like, man, you know, I hope he's not like a drill sergeant where, you know, if every little thing that I'm doing wrong, he's just gonna, you know, yell at me about it. Because I'm horrible under pressure. So I was nervous that I was going to get yelled at the whole class. I was also very concerned that I was going to be the only female there. Also concerned about, you know, what type of students were going to be in the class. Were they going to have lots of ego and be very arrogant? I was nervous about that. And then, you know, as a mom, I was thinking about my kids, and then I'm like, oh man, are they doing okay with grandma? You know,
I was totally loving it. The fact that grandma had the kids, we got to spend a day without them. I love the little tykes, but still, it was nice being able to take the aggression out in shooting for 2 days versus having to take care of the kids.
Well, actually, we were there 3.
Yeah, it was 3 days.
So that was a long time, you know, the kids. So not only just nervous about the class, but also too just about, you know, the kids and grandma and stuff like that. But you know what? I was so happy when I got there. The people that own Cumberland
Well, it's Cumberland Tactics,
Thank
but the place where Randy Kane does his class, which is in Lakeland. So
they were so nice. Down-to-earth people, super approachable, which I really appreciate being in the gun industry, because sometimes you just get a lot of inapproachable people. So super approachable. So we show up, very nice. I was shocked by how nice everybody was. I was really expecting a very sterile atmosphere where nobody really talked to anybody. But everybody was super friendly. Hey, how are you? What's your name? Where are you from? Which I thought was very refreshing. And it eased my anxiety about just taking the class in general. So
one of the things, you know, not only is gear an issue of separation between males and females in taking the class, I gotta say this because it's probably one of the funniest things throughout the weekend. So let's talk about the bathroom facilities over at where we were shooting. For guys, we're easy, right? Basically, when you're in a class, especially if it has more than one berm, you know, you just go on the other side of the berm, do your business, and then you get to go back. For females,
ladies can't do that.
Yeah, a little different. So the issue, the separation between us was the bathroom. And don't get me wrong, the facilities are great. We had a great time over there, but it's about one step to complete rustic, because the bathroom the front door was basically these slats of wood that anyone from 100 yards could see right through it. So basically I had to stand in front of the door while she was going, you know, doing her business, stand in front of the door so that nobody could see. So I mean, those are things that as a male, to us, it doesn't bother us. We don't care about it. But for a female, I think it's
my first time using an outhouse.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was my first time using an outhouse. So definitely had to get used to that.
Now, what advice would you give to female shooters who are on the fence about taking a class and they want to do it? What advice would you give them, that if they're almost ready to make that decision, and then to make that decision, what are some of the things that you would give to them as far as, you know, foods for thought or any kind of advice?
I would definitely say get a buddy, right? Get a buddy system, just like when you go out for drinks with the girls, you're all together. I would definitely suggest that for the shooting class, because it just makes it more enjoyable, because you got a friend going with you. If you have a significant other or a spouse, then I would highly suggest you take your significant other or your spouse. You know, there's a lot of sentiment about, you know, husbands and wives should train separately. And, you know, in the beginning when I first started shooting, I agreed with that. However, now my opinion has changed, and that's because, you know, as husband and wife, you're a team. You know, you're a team at home, you know, wrestling the kids, living life, you do it as a team. And when it comes to training, it should be the same attitude. because if you're grocery shopping and you got your whole family in the car, you're gonna have, you're working together. So if you don't have a significant other or a spouse, I would definitely, it's still nice to go with a friend. As far, what are we talking about next? Gear?
No, the next question that I was going to have is, so you give advice to the girls that want to take these classes. What advice do you give, and I'm not asking you to tell me what to do, but what advice do you give the guys whose girlfriends or wives are like, you know what, I think I'm ready to make this move. I want to start taking a class. What advice would you give to the guys so that either they help encourage and not discourage them to do it?
Well, absolutely encourage, okay? So you're going to be helpful. However, what I would discourage the guys from doing would be from taking over. Typically what you'll see is husband and wife or significant others come in, and you'll see typically the male will dominate the conversation and be like, well, this is what she needs. That's not what we need. We need a lot of opinions, and we need to talk to a bunch of different people to find out what it is that we need, because we don't know. So definitely be encouraging, and just like with anything, it's a process, and just to kind of be open to it. So that would be my opinion on it.
All right. In part 2, we're going to talk about gear, especially going to classes, and not only just for classes, but just gear for women in general as well as men. She's a Glock hater. I can't stop that, but I can't hate it either. So we're going to talk about that in part 2.
Who said I hated Glock?
Yeah, well, she can manipulate a double stack magazine. So you know what I'm saying, guys? You know what I'm saying? So, but
we
still.
are so not airing this.
Yeah. But anyway, so watch for part 2. We're going to do gear reviews as a woman. We're going to talk about what, for a woman, EDC, how to carry, things like that. And then also for you ladies, if there's any questions or comments that you have, things that you would like for Jessica to talk about, whether with me or without me, go ahead and put it in the comments section, and we'll take that so that we can come up with some additional videos. We'll also answer any questions that you have in there. And don't forget to watch our other videos. Go to Urban Soldiers Dynamic on YouTube, and you can also go to our website, urbansoldiersdynamic.com. And then we're also on Facebook, and that's facebook.com/Urban Soldiers Dynamic. Thanks, guys and ladies, and hopefully you enjoyed this video, and watch us for part 2.